Hello, Revan Magus here. Today we will be taking a look at the new RPG Solasta, Crown of the Magister, an early access title that hopes to combine D&D with RPG games video game-wise. Will Solasta live up to these lofty goals, or will it fail horribly? Now, Solasta starts off by showcasing its similarities to the 5e rule set of D&D.
Describe them!
Spells from the popular games such as Burning Hands, Sacred Flame, Fairy Light make an appearance, and the rules around them mimic the source material heavily. When starting off, you will choose a campaign, and you can either make your own characters or use pre-made characters. Now, when you're creating your own characters, at this time it's really relatively simple. There's minimal choices. You will basically choose what kind of race you want to be. This could be human, halfling, half-elf, elf, dwarf. And you can modify how they look slightly, but don't expect like the full D&D characters. There are a lot of missing races, such as the Kenku, the Tabaxi, just any of the like bigger races are missing. And you're not going to get that in this game. It's going to be very human-esque styling. That's why it's more regulated to like dwarves and humans, that kind of style. The second noticeable absence is class selection. Currently, there are, I believe, 6 classes, including soldier, paladin, wizard, rogue, that kind of ranger. And while that's all good, there is some noticeable missing ones, such as like sorcerer and bard. Now, if you know anything about 5e rule set, sorcerer and bard use the stat charisma for most of their attacks. That is their primary stat block. So there are classes that do gain a bonus in charisma, but since those classes aren't in there, there aren't really any that appeal to that or can use charisma as their base stat. So you're kind of building a subpar character. Now, once you've selected your race, your class, all that, you can actually go in and select what alignment they'll be. This will give them some little quirks. You're basically building out your entire character sheet right then and there, down to like what items, everything that you will have on this character, as long as it follows the 5e rule set of point buy or dice roll. And if all this is sounding very confusing, it is. It is very confusing if you have never played 5e. That is definitely where this game will push people away, is the fact that it is very based on 5e. Now, the secondary thing that comes with this is graphically, your characters will look a little bit funky.
This beer tastes like donkey piss. Not that I'm complaining.
Do not expect to make exquisitely detailed, beautiful characters. That's not how this works. You basically get kind of an odd-looking character. Now, currently there is only one quest available at startup, basically the Crown of Magister. It starts as a level 1 quest, and you will choose from a party of 4 characters that you've created or pre-made ones. The quest itself will introduce you a lot to the tutorial section. You will play as one character at a time, learning the different ways of playing the game. It does a fantastic job of actually getting you used to the game, getting you used to like all the different rules, what characters can do, light sources, long rests, everything stabilized with 5e you will get used to through this. If you have played 5e, even better. Now, that was the intro to the game. So what's great about this game? First of all, this game does feel very much like D&D. So if you enjoy playing D&D, you're going to get some of those D&D fixes that you need. The combat especially is based around 5e, so you will get everything that you can possibly hope to imagine with D&D if you love the combat. Back attacks, sneak attacks, everything like that. The actual combat itself does have the ability to move around the terrain. It has vertical and horizontal, as well as different things you can interact with the environment during combat. This does make the combat a little bit more interesting than the traditional grid-based fighting system, which some of these games do tend to fall into. The one downside to this is, and this is throughout the entire game, Graphically, this game does not always look the best, and some of their finishing touches need to be really worked on with this game. You'll see dice rolls come up real quick. Sometimes they disappear a little bit fast, especially if combat's being finished. There was a scene in the tutorial section where you fight a guy, and I snuck up behind him, hit him with the sword, got a natural 20, which in D&D does extra damage, and that was it. And like, it just was a quick little blip. Even the zoom in feature was missing from the combat. Now, the secondary thing about the combat that actually makes it awkward, it works and it doesn't work. If you've ever played 5e and you have a larger group than 4, you can understand how the turn orders kind of get a little bit hectic and a little bit long. When you have 4 characters, this is especially true. You will see that there's a lot to manage. There's movement, there's combat, disengaging, everything like that. And while it does stick true to it, it is a little bit of a deterrence if you aren't really too familiar or love that. It's a very love-hate relationship with it. And that's not always the greatest. Now, the secondary feature that kind of hurts with this is, at least with the movement wise, and there might be ways to switch this up, but I was unable to. Your characters move as a 2x2 grid, if you think about it that way. They move one character behind the other and then one character to the side. So there's always this block moving, and it kind of makes it hard. You don't get that like style that you do with regular D&D where you might be trying to move over behind crates while someone else is setting up a flank. There's just very minimal that you can do with that until combat starts. Once combat starts, you are basically free to do whatever you want, which is good. So combat kind of works. It's not bad. It definitely follows the rule set. I just wish they would put some finishing touches on it. Now, voice acting in this game. The voice acting in this game is very hit or miss. At times, the voice acting works decently well. You'll hear people bantering. The banter actually sounds realistic. It sometimes works. And then other times, I believe I heard the word rat piss about 5 times just within the first intro, and I was like, okay, a little bit too much. This definitely detracts from the game when it doesn't feel realistic. It kind of feels like they gave an edgy teenager the ability to write some stuff with this. So that doesn't always work. You do also have some weird glitches when it comes to the voice acting. There was a scene I ran into where the character that I created for some reason said stop talking when nobody was talking. Like there was just nothing going on, and he kind of mumbled to himself, so I'm not sure if there was some weird thing going on with it or not. And this also does bring into the fact that you do not really get to customize these characters in that traditional sense. You can't have your characters say weird things or do weird things off the bat because it is very regulated to whatever was voice acted. So sometimes you will just run into scenes where, hey, you know, you're just going with the flow. Whatever your character would ask, there isn't really too much of a difference.
Never mind him. He's just another drunk scavenger.
Aren't all drunks basically stupid?
So
now, the choices are the biggest thing in D&D, especially. And Solasta, the biggest issue is you're not always entirely sure what your choices have done or the effects they've made. So for instance, you might ask for something like to barter with somebody, but you're not actually seeing the dice roll as easily. Sometimes it is obscured, sometimes you won't actually understand what happened, and there's not a good visual feedback on that element. So there's no real sense of, hey, I did this thing, the dice failed, oh no. I would like to see a little bit more clarity around that aspect. I would also like to see, at least in more scenes, where you can actually use some of your skills to do things. I know in the very tutorial section, I did not run into any situation in which I could actually use my skills other than, I believe, one stealth section. Now, granted, I do know there are scenes later, and they do have a little bit of feedback, like, hey, you're going to be using your charisma, this person has a +4, this person has intimidation, this person does this. And that does work relatively well. I would have liked to see some of the other 5e rule set go in with that, though. Is such having people team up to do these scenes, like, oh, we both want to intimidate, that kind of stuff. That's, at least in my playthrough, not the case. It could have been the characters that I had created, but for the most part, I would think there would be some overlap with that. Sound-wise, this game does actually, like, with regards to combat and that kind of stuff and natural sounds, it's fine. It's passable. I can't really think of anything that I remember from like a hallmark from the game musical wise. It's very fantasy epic styling to it, so it does the job. It's what you expect. It's what you throw in the background when you're playing D&D with actual people in real life, so not bad. Definitely works for what it is trying to accomplish.
This council needs to get organized. They have no right to keep us waiting like this.
So what would I like to see from this game going forward? I would like to see more races, more quests. There is a lot I could see this game expanding on. I would love to see being able to create your own quests. Would that be possible with the voice acting and that kind of stuff? Probably not. You would need to regulate it to text-based, and that's not really going to happen. I would also like to see a little stuff cleaned up. There are a decent amount of glitches. There are a decent amount of characters overlapping on top of each other, cutting into each other, clothing flowing in the wind when you can obviously see the character was brought into the scene from a programming perspective when they were dropped in. Like, you could see all the clothes getting the physics elements added onto them, and they kind of jump around and jumble, and it does make it a little bit unnerving. So I would like to see that kind of clarified. I would like to see some more polish just all around everything. It's definitely an early access game that could potentially have a lot going for it. If you get more of those elements of more classes, more campaigns, more real just everything, you could have this could be an amazing game. If you do want that like 5e fix, it definitely is fun. It definitely showcases what you can do with the source material, and that's definitely something that should be going forward. I love seeing the aspects of D&D board, like the D&D like tabletop, whatever it's considered, being shown in this game. I mean, I loved using Burning Hands. I loved using Firebolt and seeing it light things on fire. There was a lot going for it, and I do think this game has the potential, but currently there is a lack of polish, and you do need to know that going in. You also do need to know that this game is very complex in what it's trying to accomplish with that rule set. It is accessible, it's just going to be a lot of menu reading.
You're right. Keep it. We'll survive.
So my final thoughts, would I recommend this game? I would recommend it. If you do like D&D, pick this game up. It's a lot of fun. It's fun to have a team of all 4 rogues go and do the quest. And it kind of opens up a few different possibilities. It is a great, fun game for that aspect. And I think it will advance in the future. I would love to see more of the roadmap, what they plan to do with this going forward. And I'm going to keep an eye on it. And if you guys did enjoy this review, please leave a like, please leave a comment, please leave a subscribe, and join me for the next one. But until next time, this is Revan saying I'll catch you later.